Have you ever tried to communicate calmly? Say exactly how you feel. And somehow it still turned into an argument.
Many people think how you say and what you say is the most important thing in communication. But one thing people miss is time. And timeliness is many times underrated. And you can have a good intention, you can have the great message, you have the right words, but if it's not at the right time, other person can't hear what you actually have to say. And therefore, then you feel unheard, even though you say what you have on the heart. And even though it has the right intention, it cannot be heard. And that can many times create a lot of frustration for you who tries to communicate the message.
Exactly, completely. The thing is, people often try to have meaningful conversations when they are emotionally triggered or when emotions run high. A mentor of mine used to say that when emotions are high, intelligence is low. And it's typical, exactly after an intense fight, now you want to have a meaningful conversation. Or when one person is already feeling criticized. When you're feeling criticized, your brain is not hearing a conversation or communication. Your brain is registering a threat.
Very true. I think when the moment you feel attacked in a situation, defensiveness kicks in. When there's defensiveness, you're trapped in your own little story. You're trapped in your reality from your perspective. I've seen people, very intelligent people, having a conversation, trying to get a solution, having the same conversation for an hour, just going in one loop, not actually reaching a conclusion, not reaching resolution. They can't hear what the other person is saying. And therefore, they keep going
in the same
loop, in the same circle.
And you know what is interesting? That is why people raise their voice in an argument.
That is interesting.
They've shown that because you feel unheard, you actually raise your voice to be heard. So even if you only a few feet from each other, if you don't feel heard, notice if you raise your voice, it could be an indication that you don't feel heard because you are trying to reach the person with volume there.
Quite interesting. The other thing I've seen notice is that people have different personalities. And one personality maybe needs a bit of needs a bit of time. It's like, I need maybe an hour before let's have the conversation. Other people might need a day to have the conversation. So different people have different personalities and different desires in how to resolve the conflict. What is important is not to sweep it underneath the carpet. Because many people give it now time, and then they don't go back to have the conversation. And whatever you sweep underneath the carpet, in the next conversation is going to come back. And that's many times what we see. People go and fetch all the old stuff and of the previous situations and bring it into the current situation because the old issues hasn't been resolved. So it's important to have the conversation, resolve the conflict, but when the time is ready.
I'm one of those culprits from a personality perspective that I want to resolve it now. So I've learned the hard way that it's not always the most opportune time to resolve it in the moment because, like you said, somebody else might need some time, but actually you yourself need time because in that moment, why are you pushing for the conversation? Because of your own discomfort. My own discomfort with there being an issue, wanted to push to resolve the issue. But because we're both emotional and then it's not the right time to have a conversation. So that old marriage advice that don't go to bed angry isn't always helpful because maybe sometimes you need to spend a night on the couch just to get some emotional equilibrium going before addressing the issue and getting to a resolution.
Yeah, I always say don't have a conversation when you are triggered. Because when you are triggered, you're so trapped in your own little story, you can't hear what the other person is saying.
Yes, exactly. And this is a good tool to add in your relationship toolbox for couples out there, is learn the value of pausing. Take time to pause in a conflict to allow for the right emotional state. Because good communication, doesn't necessarily start with the right words. You can have all the right words, but as you say, if somebody's triggered, they're not going to hear it. So, more importantly, is the right emotional moment. And to get to the right emotional moment, you need to pause.
Most definitely. And pause doesn't mean suppress it. Because whatever you suppress will explode. And that's when it happens when we see in relationships, people have immense anger issues because they suppress the conversations which they actually should have. And then that then comes out as anger and this aggression in an unhealthy manner.
Yeah, no, it's not suppression, just pause for the right moment.
Yes.
But then also work actively to get that right moment.
Yes.
You
need to create the right moment.
Create the right moment. Work on yourself first, get your own emotions down before, and that calming would also play back to your partner.
And what is also important is the approach. How are you going to approach your partner? You're not going to approach them by attacking them. You're not going to blame them, not going to shame them. It's like having a calm manner in order to approach them. I always say, let's have that difficult, uncomfortable cup of tea. Because sometimes let's create a setting where which is comfortable, which is relaxed, where we can still address what needs to be resolved.
That difficult conversation. Because if you think about it again from the physiology, your nervous system is triggered at that moment. So when your nervous system is triggered, then the only thing that's front of mind is your own self-preservation. You don't actually, if you're honest with yourself, you're not that focused on what the other person wants. You're maybe not even that focused on the issue anymore. You're really fighting for survival. And that will come across. That will come across in how you say things, in the words that you use, in all the subtle nonverbal communication will be survival and threatening. So when the nervous system calms down, if you pause long enough and you work actively on getting yourself in a more regulated, calm nervous system space, your mind opens up again. Curiosity comes back. And curiosity is such an important element of communication. Curiosity means I am curious to understand how you are experiencing this. I am curious to understand what just happened here.
Yes.
I am curious to see how are we going to resolve it. And that curiosity opens your mind to really hear the person, but also to be able to express yourself in a more effective and calm manner. And that curiosity and open-mindedness opens a whole different way of engagement. And Quentin, you have a very nice word for it. You talk about humble presence.
Yeah, I love humble presence. Humble presence in that situation also means I need to become aware of my trigger. I need to become aware of my righteousness. And many times, if I want to be right, it's not going to serve me. And sometimes I need to put my own ego better in my pockets and just pause for a moment and then the curiosity can surface. Because it's not I want to prove a point. I want to hear where you are at so we can get back on the same page. And for me, that's the core of any conflict. We need to get back on the same page because conflict is a reflection that you're not on the same page.
Yes, and that humble presence bring a willingness to be wrong. One of my very first teachers in human behavioral sciences used to say that, do you want to be right or do you actually want to win? Winning meaning a win-win for us. Because, and this is quite a visual that always stuck in my head, where he said, what does war stand for? I mean, that is the most extreme form of conflict, is war. We're at war. And it's a party on this side that says we, WAR, right.
Yes.
And the other grouping say, we are right. And with two we are rights, you just have war.
Exactly.
So how do you get out of it? Somebody has to go, I'm willing to be wrong. I feel I'm right, but I'm willing to be wrong, willing to be saying that I might have missed something. Maybe there's something in this situation that I'm not aware of that could change my mind and could change my perspective. So I'm willing to be wrong. And I think that goes nicely with the humble presence.
Yeah. It's important to realize the importance of timing. But communication is much more. Effective communication is much more than just time.
Exactly. And I think that is why we decided to do a whole series on good communication in healthy relationships, because ultimately communication is such a foundational element of relationships. And as you said, it's such a broad field with so many elements and dynamics in it. So if you feel like your conversations keep going into conflict, then watch out for our video. We'll link it in the comments below for why do people get defensive. And then subscribe to the channel for following this series and getting some more tools in your relationship toolbox that can help with effective communication.